Welcome to Coffee and a Weather Map with Jeff, and it is July 9th, 2025. Looking at the surface analysis from this morning, you can see the Bermuda high off the east coast, and then that pattern brings a lot of moisture up into the southern states and along the east coast. That is causing a myriad of issues along the region. We've had just basically showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon across the southern states, all the way over into Texas, due to the moisture that this high is bringing ashore. But with the front that you see that's trying to push down through the Appalachian Mountains and that low that's in Michigan, we are getting a enhancement there, and that will be one of the trouble issues that we will take a look at here in a little bit. Also, there are little areas of low pressure that are out in the plain states, not necessarily associated with the front, stationary front, but as they all kind of move together here during the afternoon and the next day or two with that low that's up there by in Canada, it's should start to move across as well, and that will cause some problems in the next couple of days after that. Looking at the upper air, you can see the Bermuda high out over the Atlantic. This continues that high, pushing mid-level moisture into the region. I did have, let's see here, I think it's this one. Yes, so here's the Nashville, Tennessee upper air from last night. And if you look at the red and green lines, the red line is the temperature as it goes up through the atmosphere, and the green is the amount of moisture expressed as the dew point. You can see they're pretty close together up through 500 millibars, which is roughly about halfway through, at least pressure-wise, the atmosphere. So with that, basic from the surface up through roughly 17 to 20,000 feet, where that is, you're getting a lot of moisture. You also notice that in the upper air, there is a trough over the Great Lakes, which also kind of sort of, if you look at the wind flow pattern, stretches all the way down into Texas. That's also going to be a weather maker here over the next day or so. And then as we look at the out west, you have that big ridge of high pressure that's out over the desert southwest, and that's causing dryness issues and heat issues out there, which we'll take a look at as well. If we take a look at the satellite, well, this is the moving satellite here, and I took a snapshot here earlier, and I marked out the lows and fronts along the area, and you can see that the fronts and the lows are all causing the cloud cover and the showers and thunderstorms along that particular area, just basically on the satellite. You noticed up in North Dakota and in South Dakota, Nebraska, there's been a couple of nocturnal thunderstorms that have tried to get going here just a little bit before sun, or right around sunrise up in those areas. If they can maintain themselves, and they probably will with that boundary nearby and the low pressure systems that are in Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, that low area, that's where our next area of concern would be. And just kind of taking a look at the upper air pattern, that 500 millibar pattern we were looking at earlier, you can see how a lot of those clouds align along that. And the thunderstorms in the northern plains, especially the one up in North Dakota, is riding right along the jet stream. That's in a good spot for it. And then with that south flow of moisture coming up the front range of the Rockies and the northern plains as well, that'll help defeat it as it gets its act together here this morning along that boundary. Okay, back to, and as we were talking about earlier, that you can see the storms out in the plains. They continue to go. There looks like they may be falling apart. They do have a hard time in the morning hours getting going and staying sustained, but they will probably, because the moisture's there, there'll probably be more showers and thunderstorms that will break out as well. And then we've got the front and that trough that are moving out of the upper Great Lakes into the mid-Atlantic states here over the day as well. So moving along, here's our warning, watch, and advisory level map that's the National Weather Service puts out. As I was pointing out on the surface and the upper air maps, the main concern will be the heavy rain effect, at least even in the immediate future. There's a flood watch that stretches, or a series of flood watches that stretch from central North Carolina up through Virginia into Maryland, Delaware, southeastern Pennsylvania, and southern Jersey. Those will continue here during the day, and we'll take a look at some more of that with the Outlook section coming up. As we go into the Great Lakes, there is a beach hazard statement along the Great Lakes from roughly Muskegon County down into northern Indiana, down around Gary, due to the fact that the wave heights will start to increase through the day as the front goes through and the winds increase a bit out of the north and causing higher wave action. So there will be some rip currents that would be possible and other dangerous currents that would occur in these cases. It's also, there is a small craft advisory that goes into effect at 2 p.m. this afternoon there from Whitehall all the way down to St. Joe and in Michigan, and those places as the wave heights get up to that 3 to 5 foot wave height range. Otherwise, then we had fog, which should be starting to dissipate there in northern Illinois and in central Illinois. If you are on the Great Loop or boating on those rivers, you need to be careful about that until the fog burns off. And then I was talking a little bit about going out a little bit further west with that area of high pressure in the upper atmosphere, that ridge. It's causing heat and drying. Down in Arizona, those are heat warnings, excessive heat warnings in effect. All the pink areas, the pinker areas, are red flag warnings for low humidities, higher winds, and sometimes heat. I think there it's just low humidity and higher winds is typically out in the west, their main criteria. And then the orange are heat advisories that you see along the front range of the Rockies, as well as in the plains of eastern Montana. All right, now for the Outlook section. As I had alluded to before, we following, if you remember, all the highs and lows and fronts. The slight risk that's over the mid-Atlantic states, that will be due to the front that's coming out of the upper Great Lakes and is basically kind of draped into that same area, as well as the shortwave that is trying to push through in the upper level part of the atmosphere. So that will continue to be an issue as far as slight risks for thunderstorms. If we take a look real quick, the only tornado is out in that at least the 2% range. If for tornadoes, the chances are out in the Dakotas, and with that other that slight risk there, which kind of reaches down into Nebraska, but the tornado threat stays up along that front that we were discussing earlier. Otherwise, the main issue along a lot of those storms will be wind and hail, with the largest hail expected to be up where that tornado threat is in the Dakotas, as well as the highest wind threats. Wind usually looks to be the main issue out in the mid-Atlantic states, and there's just that marginal area that's there along that front in the southeastern portion of Michigan and northern Ohio, that along that front as well, that could produce some strong to severe storms. As we kind of move along, as those systems all try to progress, the front's going to try on the East Coast is going to try to move a little bit further south, and that's going to move the slight risk further south out of Virginia for the most part and into the Carolinas. We'll continue with slights up there in North Dakota and across the northern plains, as well as that marginal area as that system tries to drop down out of Canada and move along. Looks like right now they don't expect a whole lot with it, just marginal. But you can see with all the moisture that we were discussing earlier that has caused just a general threat for showers and thunderstorms across the eastern half of the United States. Looking at the excessive rain, which I did not reset. One more, here we go. The main issue is right along that front that is down in the Virginia area, where there is a moderate risk of excessive heavy rain, and that's at least a 14% or 40% chance of exceeding flash flood guidance, which right now is probably pretty low from all the rain that's already occurred, within 25 miles of a point in that area. And of course, the slight risk, which is at least a 15% chance, that is covering a good portion from New Jersey, south and southeastern Pennsylvania, all the way down into Georgia as this continues into tomorrow. And just looking at that, the slight risk kind of slides a little bit south as that front starts to move offshore a bit, but we're still going to have enough showers and thunderstorms along that front to continue on in the Carolinas for at least a slight risk for heavy rain. Out in the plains and Midwest, we start seeing that slight risk for heavy rain getting into mainly Iowa, but also eastern Nebraska and southeastern South Dakota, a little bit of Minnesota, as that goes on, with the marginal area that basically covers a lot of the northern plains states. And on day 3, so this is Friday into Saturday morning, marginal areas everywhere. I dare to say that it would be starting to slow down, but as I have seen the last couple of days, the trend has been to have these things a little bit on the lower side, but they start to ramp up the closer we get to them. So yesterday's day 3, which is now day 2, now has slights, where I think yesterday they were all marginals. So I would not be surprised, especially with some of these systems, the way that they're supposed to come across, that we don't have some areas of slight risk and maybe even moderate in a few places. I'm not going to nail those down, at least at this point, but at least slights in there in a lot of these areas as time comes on. All right, moving on to the hurricane tropical section. Not a lot to take a look at here, as we now have gotten into another quiet period after all of our little disturbances. It's not that something couldn't get started, but at least at this point, nothing is signifying that we should see any tropical development, even with those fronts as they move offshore into the Atlantic, unlike the last week when we had Barry and Chantal. Tropical cyclonic activity, at least at this point, during the next 7 days is not expected. All right, that brings us to the outlook for the local areas. So the main thing that we've got going in northern Michigan today that the Gaylord office has outlined specifically is that marginal area of heavy rain, which would be in the southeastern part of the forecast area, which is basically south of Alpena over and down to Gladwin. I have outlined here on this graphic. Showers and thunderstorms will develop later this afternoon and evening. Where I am located, I am just outside of the chance of precipitation, so a lot of that's going to be focused along that front as it is further to the east of us here. Otherwise, they will have a quieter end to the week, as they say here on the tab, with mainly dry and conditions for Thursday and Friday. Saturday, there is a chance for showers and thunderstorms coming back in, as we've kind of noted in some of the previous ones. So as we look at the South Texas forecast, there is a chance, at least up to a 50% chance or greater, in up in the Victoria crossroads. Otherwise, it looks like it's about 35 to 50% up in that area. The rest of the coastal plains look like it's going to be somewhat minor, at least lower chances, as we are below 25% over a good portion of it. Maybe up to 35% as you get up near Mathis. And actually, any more rain that they could get into Lake Corpus Christi, which is right there near Mathis, would be a good thing. Out further west into the brush country and the Rio Grande Plains, the chances for precipitation during the day today drop off considerably. High temperatures across South Texas will be along the upper 80s along the barrier islands. So it's a good day to get out to the beach, especially since it'll be in the lower 90s across the rest of the coastal plains and in the Victoria crossroads. As you get further out to the west into the brush country, then it starts getting into the mid and upper 90s. For tonight, not much different than what we usually see this time of year in South Texas. Mid 70s out in the brush country and the Rio Grande Plains as you keep continuing to go to the east and get into the coastal plains and eventually the coastal bend and itself. You are seeing temperatures closer to 80 degrees with those water temperatures all in the mid and upper 80s as well. So with that, that is the end of Coffee and a Weather Map with Jeff. If you're expecting the Great Loop forecast, I am going to do a separate video on that since it looks like it's going to get more involved, especially with weather along those areas. And as I learn more about how the rivers react to precipitation, I will probably have a little bit more with that, especially since there are a couple of flood warnings along the lower Mississippi. And with that, I will say have a great day and take care.